Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So I remember when I was a kid, I was way into Black Flag, totally into Black Flag. A kid on the school bus gave me a tape, and on one side it had Black Flag, and on the other side it had Killdozer, and I went, this is very different from anything that I've ever heard, and I lived with that tape inside my Walkman that I was so proud that I got for a long, long time. And that's where my knowledge of Black Flag came from. That's kind of where my knowledge of punk rock music came from. When I moved to England, there were all these people walking around with brightly colored mohawks and studs and all this sort of stuff. And I found that to be kind of comical. Like that version of punk rock when I was a kid, I was just like, it's funny. It's fine. They look like clowns. And that's not casting aspersions on their fashion choices or the music that they were all about. But I just kind of didn't relate to it or take it all that seriously. When I heard Black Flag and someone explained to me that that was punk rock, I was like, well, this is punk rock that I can get into. This is cool. This is really cool. And so I grew up loving Black Flag, going through all their albums, having most of them on tape from this same kid who kind of would record them for me, give them to me on the school bus. And every single time I got one, it felt like getting tapes from behind the enemy lines. Like I was hearing stuff that I shouldn't be hearing. And it was going to help me win my personal revolution. I was very young at the time. So the idea of a counterculture, I wasn't even sure what culture was. I could about get it together to go to school and hack my way through a day of the 3rd or 4th grade. But Black Flag made a big impression on me. But I had a hard time reconciling that this was punk rock because, well, when I moved to England and I saw these people with green mohawks and Doc Marten boots and spikes everywhere and all these sort of interesting and different fashion trends that were regarded as being punk rock, and then listen to the music that was regarded as being punk rock that went with those mohawks and things of that nature, I found it to be very different from the punk rock that was on this tape, this Black Flag tape that I was listening to. And so I was kind of confused, not enough to really have it bother me, but I was always like, what really is punk? And then when we were kids, Green Day and The Offspring came out. There was this big back and forth about which band was more punk rock. And it really made me think about what punk rock was. Now, cut to a few more years later, a buddy of mine who is responsible for a great deal of my musical, comedic, and social education, my friend Greg, the guy that introduced me to Public Enemy, the guy that introduced me to Rage Against the Machine. We were talking about Black Flag. He's like, oh, man, you got it. There's this, okay, it's called The Box Life, and it's a Henry Rollins box set. That's the lead singer from Black Flag. You knew that, right? And I was like, yeah, I think I knew Henry Rollins was in Black Flag, but what is it? Is it music? And he's like, you don't know this? I was like, no, what? He's like, Henry Rollins does like entire shows where he doesn't play music at all. I was like, no music? He's like, no, he just gets up and talks. And he gave me this one album, this one box set. It was called The Box Life. And as much of a fan as I'd been of Henry Rollins, the frontman for Black Flag, I became 10 times the fan of him just talking. I think that's what he called it. This is before anybody referred to that art form as spoken word. I just became this huge fan of Henry Rollins talking and listening to stories of when he used to be on tour with Black Flag in an album, on an album called Get in the Van, which, by the way, please, like, it's one thing to read the book, and Henry's a great writer, but if you listen to the audio version of Get in the Van, you'll understand exactly why it won a Grammy. It's one of the greatest listens you're ever going to listen to. But what was really, really interesting about listening to Henry Rollins was, at one point, he sort of answered my query about punk rock. I don't remember which album it was on, but he made reference to being asked what punk rock was. And I was like, Dad, this was my question that I was wondering ever since I was like a kid. Is it, Black Flag or the Ramones or something like that? Or is it the brightly colored punk rock safety pins through various body parts that weren't intended for safety pins version of punk rock that I encountered when I first moved to England? Which is it? And Henry said something that I'll never forget, and it's kind of what I live by to this day. He said, to me, punk rock is the idea of questioning everything. And we'll discuss why it's very important to question everything, especially right now.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So I love my parents. Love my parents. I think they did a stellar job at raising me. People that know me might disagree, but I really, really am grateful to my parents for providing the things that they provided. And the things that maybe they didn't provide, well, they didn't know any better or they weren't able to. I don't know. But there's many things that my mom and dad taught me that I'm eternally grateful for. They gave me music. They gave me a set of drums when I was 4 years old and allowed me to beat the living crap out of them in their house for the next 12 years. Not many parents would have put up with that, but they encouraged it. They encouraged the joyful noise known as music. And I'm incredibly grateful for that because, well, you and I have talked about this a bit in the past, but I have ADD. I have all sorts of learning disabilities, ADD, dyslexia, an inability to sit still. And before any of that was sort of diagnosed in me, I was shoved in the back of the class and told I was slow and that, there weren't that many expectations being placed on me because I would never amount to much anyway by teachers. And they told me this in a very matter-of-fact way. And the fact that my parents encouraged music, gave me art, gave me things that I showed some aptitude for. The fact that my dad would play catch with me and he would call my mom outside and say, look how hard this kid throws the ball. Like, you could be really good at this if you wanted to. You could be really good at music if you wanted to. You could be really good at art if you wanted to. All of this while I was being told that, I was kind of an ignoramus in school. That stuff was useful. And I'm eternally grateful for those things that my parents gave me. I'm eternally grateful for the music and the books and the encouragement to do the things that I was good at. Once I did kind of figure out that I had attention deficit disorder and that I had dyslexia and I figured out a workaround for my brain, academics became much easier. But without the things that my parents gave me as a kid, I don't know how I would have gotten by. I don't know how I would have survived. I don't know where I would have gotten my sense of self-worth from if they hadn't encouraged the things like the music and the baseball and the art and things of that nature. One thing my parents did not do, though, and I think maybe it was just because I was just hanging in there by a thread at all times, especially in school. One thing they didn't ask me to do was question authority, which is weird because both my parents kind of grew up in this counterculture sort of time where the establishment, the man was breathing down your neck and they were there to think a little differently, and there were sort of revolutions of thought and social ideas and things of that nature. So they questioned everything, but they didn't really encourage me to do that. Like I said, hanging by a thread at school. I think on the verge of getting kicked out all the time because academically I was so bad. So the idea of me challenging an educator, challenging an authority figure, I think they just wanted me to be able to stay in and not get expelled because my grades were bad any way I could. So I wasn't really taught, like I said, to question. The person that taught me to question was Henry Rollins. I've been searching for the answer. What is punk rock? Is punk rock his band Black Flag that I like, which I've heard people call punk rock? Or is it this weird sort of cartoonish thing that I saw when I moved over to England when people had safety pins everywhere and bright orange mohawks and things of that nature? Which one? Because they seem very different, but people are calling it, what is that? And of course, punk rock is one of the most vague and nebulous terms you're ever going to come across. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I remember when my buddy Greg made me start listening to Henry Rollins' spoken word albums, which were an absolute revelation to me because I only knew him as a musician. I didn't know he was a professional talker. One of the things that he said in one of his talks was that sometimes people ask him what punk rock is. And he said to him, punk rock is questioning everything. And from that point on, I was like, okay, that's I guess I am kind of a punk. And as such, I should question things. And I should not believe what's handed to me. And if something smells a little fishy, I should maybe do a little investigation or figure it out on my own, as opposed to believing what this parent, teacher, authority figure tells me about life the way it is, the world the way it is, and what makes it go around. I should question. And so it was, in many ways, Henry Rollins that encouraged me to start asking questions of so-called authority figures, of the status quo, of facts that we were just supposed to handle and accept. And I hope you do the same thing too. And we talk about it all the time on the show, but I hope you do the same thing with regard to politicians. I hope you do the same thing with regard to people that would ask you for campaign finance money and your vote. There's this weird thing. There's this weird thing where people seem to be an authority if they're in some kind of political office or running for some kind of political office. It creates an instant aura of us and them. And that's so unbelievably wrong because I guarantee you, you know just as much, if not more, than a lot of these people that are asking for you to vote for them so they can lead you, that are asking for your money so they can lead you. You know what freaked me out, Funkhouser? You know what freaked me out about Mike Pence? And still does, to be perfectly honest with you? You know he used to be one of us, right?
How so?
He used to be in talk radio.
What?
You didn't know this about Mike Pence?
No.
He described himself as Rush Limbaugh on decaf. I'm not even kidding. Does that make you question the vice president of these United States of America, knowing that about him, that he's kind of sort of one of us and we're kind of sort of idiots? Makes you question, doesn't it? Right? Yeah, it does. We'll discuss more interesting questions to ask of our politicians next and why we should be asking them.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So yeah, you didn't know this, Funkhouser? Mike Pence was one of us.
You're pulling my leg.
I'm not pulling your leg. I pull nothing. Nothing is being pulled. Mike Pence was a talk radio guy. He described himself as, like I said, Rush Limbaugh on decaf. And he was also on TV. I think he was a morning news anchor or something like that. Now, what's interesting is you put him next to Donald Trump and everyone's like, well, he's the sort of like more proper, uptight, stodgy politician. He's the more straight down the middle politician. I know Donald Trump is viewed by many as being sort of like the reality show president, but Pence was up in that particular game too. That whole sort of like stage trip to watch a bunch of football players kneel in Indianapolis and then act huffy and leave, costing the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. That piece of show business is something that Mike Pence would have been adept at because, like I said, he was a talk radio guy and he was a morning news guy. He understands the business of show perhaps a little bit better than we think he does. And it's amazing. It's amazing how few people know this about him. And I'm not holding that against him, but Funkhouser, do you know anyone, any of our coworkers?
Yeah.
Maybe even some very, very successful coworkers where you look at them and go, they'd make a good leader. They should be running large parts of the world.
Huh.
You know?
Can I think of one? Huh.
No. Can you?
No,
No, you can't. You cannot. And it's this weird thing where it's just like, you dig a little deeper, you scratch the surface, and all these questions arise. And my point was not so much to talk about Mike Pence's talk radio career. My point was to say, look, isn't that guy somehow that much more relatable to you and me? All of a sudden, don't you suddenly go, I don't know if this guy should have his finger anywhere near a button that should fry us. We, as broadcasters, know what other broadcasters are like, and we're not good leaders. We're not really fully formed people. We're not people that should be in power in any way, shape, or form. Like, Funkhouser and I are now feeling very uneasy about Mike Pence being a successful politician, vice president of these United States of America, because we know broadcasters. And that's not, these are not good people to have in charge. But it's amazing. You question a little bit and you see, wait a second, this guy is more like me than I thought. Well, more like me than Funkhouser than I thought. And you're going to find that with politicians all over the place. And this is why Henry Rollins' advice that punk rock is questioning everything is something that I try and live by. Because there's this assumption that if someone's running for office or if they've been elected to office, they're smart, they're worldly, they know stuff that we don't know. Ultimately, they're just people. They're just people. And many of them are not the brightest sparks. Over and over again, we implore each other on this show to trust our guts, to know ourselves, to know what's right for us, to know where our moral compass's true north points and follow that, to not take the simple narrative for simple people that the politicians would like for us to take, to not rely on the folks on Fox News and CNN to let us know what it is we should be thinking. No, we're fully formed people. We're smarter. We're more informed. We know what's right to the point where we don't need to look to these folks. Which is why, I suppose, whenever I come across a story of a politician, someone that is seeking votes, campaign finance, and all of the above, being an absolute freaking clothhead, I jump all over it. Because it's proof positive that you, me, all of us can believe in ourselves more than we can believe in any elected official. I bring you now a story. I'd like you to relax, like you to kick back, clear your mind. As I tell you the story of the drug-sniffing bunnies. The true story of the drug-sniffing bunnies, which will illustrate my point, as you see. This is written up in Philly.com. I'm going to read directly from it for a second, but when he was asked about drugs at a Phoenixville forum, Republican mayoral nominee Dave Guatro proposed that, if elected, he would look into getting drug-sniffing bunnies for the police department. Let me just repeat that. Without even the slightest hint of irony, mayoral candidate Dave Guatro proposed that, if elected, he would look into getting drug-sniffing bunnies for the police department. Guatro says, I was dead serious. I would not make a joke about a rabbit if I did not believe it to be true. So this campaign platform of equipping the police department with drug-sniffing bunnies, where did he get the idea? Does he know something about animal husbandry that you and I do not? No. He just fell prey to an April Fool's joke. The police department in Amherst, New York, proposed narcotics rabbits on their Facebook page. Guatro said he was at a party last winter and talked about possibly entering the mayoral race. He mentioned that he'd like to get the borough canine officers to combat a drug problem he sees in the area, but the dogs would be a big expense. Someone at the gathering told him Lancaster police in Pennsylvania were using drug-sniffing rabbits, which were much cheaper. Guatro claimed he called Lancaster shortly thereafter, though he couldn't recall whether he phoned the police department or the city offices. And a woman, whose name he does not recall, confirmed to him that Lancaster uses narco bunnies. He said the woman sounded convincing. I should have Googled it then, but I didn't. Lancaster City Police Lieutenant Bill Hickey said it's unlikely anyone in his department confirmed the employment of narcotics bunnies. He said, I can assure you, we do not use any type of rabbits on our law. Sorry, I can't try to keep a straight face till the end. He said, I can. This guy's asking you to vote for him. He said, I can assure you we do not use any type of rabbits in our law enforcement activities, nor do we have plans to. So you see the point I'm trying to illustrate. They've got a nice tie. They're in a jacket. They're telling you that they know what's best for you and your town or your city or your state or even your country. But they fall prey to jokes about drug-sniffing bunnies and make them campaign platforms. And they talk openly about them. And, that's why I persist in the idea that you and I should have more faith in ourselves than perhaps we do in our elected officials. That was a good story, right, Funkhouser?
Okay.
Even more of a great story because it was true. Oh, hold on. Speaking of made up stories, did you hear Patton Oswalt's bit about made up controversies on Twitter? Did you catch this?
Oh, I saw that. I saw this today. Hold
on, let's take a listen.
I'm genuinely surprised that you're in such a good mood, especially with what I'm sure you guys saw what just went down on Twitter like 5 minutes ago. You didn't see? No? I'm kidding. Nothing happened, but that's the world we're living in right now, basically, is what did he do? What? Wait, what do you mean? I almost feel like I could get out of a mugging using that for the next couple of years. Like if someone put a gun in my face, give me your wallet. You know, take my keys, man. It's over. Go check Twitter. What? And I just bolt like I could make it just survive. Because that was my routine in the morning is the alarm goes off on my phone. I get up. Have I had any calls, any texts? Okay. I check email. Then I check Twitter. And now my feet are on the ground and I can start my day. And now the routine's the same, except the alarm goes off. Okay, any calls, any texts? All right, check email. But I check Twitter like this now. Oh, what did he do? What did he do? What did he do? And no matter what is trending, I immediately link it to Trump, and it's bad. Like in my head, like if puppies are trending, I'm like, he killed all the puppies. There's no puppies. They're all dead. He killed every puppy.
All right, Funkhouser. We should probably talk about this Colin Kaepernick thing and the formal complaint that he's lodged. It's an interesting layer to the stand, take a knee.
Oh, I have
situation.
not heard about this.
Oh, yeah. No. Colin Kaepernick has lodged a formal complaint. We'll do that after we get through the news, but basically he's filed a grievance against the NFL claiming that the owners are blackballing him, which would be in violation of the collective bargaining agreement. He's going to have a tough time proving it. We'll talk about it later. What's going on in the world?
Well, while promoting her book in London, Hillary Clinton fell down the stairs and broke her toe.
Nice to see Hillary hobbled by something other than the Electoral College, I suppose. Did she blame Bernie Sanders out of habit? One would imagine she might have. That hacks me off. The book hacks me off. Like, it really does.
Everybody writes a book, though, at this point, you know?
Yeah, but it was just so ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you don't win, if you don't get the glory and the spoils and the riches, you're basically on a book tour trying to promote your website or your book or whatever the hell it is you're going to make money. Oh, I don't know. How about a little public service? How about serving the people of America as the public servant you signed up to be, as opposed to going on a show businessy book tour? I know I'm cynical. I know I'm idealistic, but I believe that maybe a politician should be doing that. A public servant should serve the public, not write an autobiographical account of their failure and disappear on a whirlwind tour of the world. You shouldn't be in England. You should be here in the trenches. Although, is she like... I guess she's not officially employed as a politician now. She's going into the private sector, thinking of working at Columbia University. But every politician just smacks of insincerity and really being on a book tour. And that hacks me off. So that's what else she's supposed to do. Funkhouser, she should serve the people. Just because she didn't win doesn't mean she has to, she had all these important... Look, Bernie Sanders is in there fighting the good fight, punching away, trying to get things done, trying to make things happen that he
didn't
thinks
write a
would be
book
better
afterward?
I don't believe so. No. He just went to work for people.
I'm
Bernie
just
Sanders
going
is a really...
to try to make things happen for the people. I'm not writing a book of 500 pages or more.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this one. Trolls on Twitter don't have to be... He totally read a book. But Sanders is an interesting one because he's a man of principle. He's a man who... Look, this will go away quickly if it turns out he's going to run in 2020. But Sanders is a guy that people on the right, interestingly enough, didn't seem to have a problem with. They hated his ideas. They hated the idea of democratic socialism. They thought it was going to lead us all to the poorhouse, and they might have been right. But they respected him because he seemed to be a man of principle. I've never heard of a lefty that got so much support from my hard right friends as Bernie Sanders. And I think, the proof is in the pudding in that he's not on a book tour right now. He's not in another country. He's fighting for what he believes is the best things are the best things for the people of America right now. So, excuse me if I'm a little chagrined about Hillary hanging out in London. I'm sure Bill's probably pretty stoked about her being on a different continent, though. Go on.
Hold my calls.
Hold this.
The obesity epidemic in America is bad for the future of our military.
Yeah. Apparently they're lowering the sort of like the standard level of fitness that it takes to get into our armed forces.
Oh, man, they're lowering the bar?
Yeah. Or requiring that you do less pull-ups on the bar, whatever the case may be. I don't know. But on the bright side, it opens up new avenues for recruitment, thanks to slogans like, join the Army, we have cake.
I could probably do one pull-up.
It's getting so bad now that the uniforms are being manufactured by the same people who make the parachutes. Really? You think you could do one pull-up?
Probably one. Maybe I can get in now.
What about all that TRX yoga that you've been doing?
It doesn't work that way.
Oh. Does it make you stronger, better, fitter, faster?
I don't think so.
It's just like stretching?
Ask me in like a year.
I thought you were supposed to transform your body in 3 weeks.
It's transforming. 3 weeks.
Transforming into what?
You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So didn't Alec Baldwin win some sort of award? Like he won an Emmy or some sort of, I don't pay attention to those self-congratulatory orgies on his television and movie awards. But didn't Alec Baldwin win an Emmy or something like that?
How long ago are you talking?
Like really recently. Gave a speech. Won an Emmy.
Probably a lot of SNL stuff won in the last thing I saw.
Yeah. But you know what's kind of interesting, and we'll get to the news later, and we'll talk about Colin Kaepernick's formal complaint against the NFL later. But have you heard Taron Killam from Saturday Night Live? Have you heard him do his Donald Trump?
No,
So much better. At least I think. I think it's so much better than Alec Baldwin's. He's from Saturday Night Live, and he did an interview recently, and he talked about when Trump hosted the show last year. Thing is, he's never played Trump on the show, but his Trump impression is pretty good. I think it might be more realistic than Alec Baldwin's. Let me know. And by the way, just to clarify, Baldwin isn't trying to make his impression realistic, he says. All right, check this out.
There's never any You know what I mean? You couldn't be like, "How was your day?" And he'd be like, "It was fine, went for a walk." It was always like, "My book is #1. It's very exciting." He wants to, he's constantly manipulating, he's managing. So, the table read, and then every rehearsal is like, if the line is written, "Hi, I'm Donald Trump and welcome to the show," it'd be like, "I'm Donald Trump, welcome." I think I should say it. "Hey guys, I'm Donald. This is the show. Welcome to it." You know what I mean? Just more natural. Taking ownership. It's now his idea. Now he gets the credit. Now he's like, "I made it so much better." And it was, like stepping to the side or stepping backwards. Like the most heartbreaking moment at the time, we're at the host dinner, and he brings Melania, and he brings Ivanka and Jared. We're all at the host dinner. And he says, "Lauren, if I don't win this thing, I'm going to be fine. We just bought this beautiful piece of property in Scotland. If I have to be president, I'm never going to see that thing." And that was his priority at that moment. You know what I mean? That was even a consideration made me sad.
There you go. Do you think is it better than Alec Baldwin's?
I mean, it's good. That guy does a lot of good ones.
Yeah, it's not bad. And by the way, Baldwin did win the 2017 Emmy Award for his Donald Trump portrayal. I knew it was something like the Emmys. All right, to the news, Funkhouser, to the news.
I'm not as quick as I used to be. Oreo beer made its debut at the Texas State Fair.
Oreo beer. Whatever it takes to get through that Quiet Riot grandstand show. Would you drink Oreo beer? What's your favorite fair food?
Fair food. I like those spiral, when they take a potato and they turn it into a spiral thing and then they dip it in.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah.
That's
Very
good.
Yeah. I had one of those like quadruple cheeseburgers where instead of getting it's like 4 cheeseburger patties with cheese.
That's never a good idea. That's too many burgers.
Well, it gets better. It's not a bun. It's a sandwich between 2 Krispy Kreme donuts.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't good. Like
it
was one of
doesn't
those
sound good.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, like I was just everybody's eating it. I think it had bacon on it too, but I was like, all right, let's give this a go, and not good. I was like, burgers and donuts are 2 delicious things, but they shouldn't be together. It was disappointing because that was the only truly over the top gluttonous fair food I'd ever
probably
tried,
try
and I was
also.
expecting it to be amazing. I just went for the most decadent looking thing on the menu, the most regrettable, like take years off of your life food item I could find, and dove in with both hands, and the experience was a bit of a disappointing one. I do like that deep fried candy that they have, like the deep fried Reese's peanut butter cups. That's some good eating right there.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I loved most recently, they're starting to get really creative with it. They put a hot dog on a stick, and then they make a potato spirally, and then they put the spiral potato like inside, in between, and it's all on a stick, self-contained, and then they dip the whole thing in French fry stuff. Oh,
Interesting. Huh.
it's so good.
I've heard of this deep fried butter thing, which I guess is like a stick of butter that they freeze and then they put it in batter and then they quick flash fry it, so you're eating like a stick of butter. And like I don't
Like,
think I
who
could
would
bring
do
myself-
that? That's not a
people do that. That's what people do. It's like people have seen one too many like man versus food type of television shows, and they go like, I'm gonna go for the most extreme and vomitous thing I can find.
That makes me squirmy.
Yeah, I know. The deep fried butter is something that I couldn't bring myself to do. I've had like the deep fried candy bars. I've had the deep fried all sorts of things. But the deep fried butter, it's actually kind of turning my stomach thinking about it. Can we do some more news?
Please. A New York restaurant is now selling a cup of coffee that costs $55.
Right. Or as it's known at Starbucks, a tall frappuccino. $55 cup of coffee. If you can't be bothered to go to New York to demonstrate that you're a giant tool by buying that $55 cup of coffee, You could just walk out into the street and kick a homeless person in the teeth. It sort of sends the same message. What else?
Today is National Pasta Day.
Right. Yeah. You know, in honor of it being National Pasta Day, a list of the 15 most heavenly Italian restaurants in America was released. What's your favorite Italian restaurant, Funkhouser?
Oh, I do like the Olive Garden because of their like endless pasta that they do for like 109 days or something. But any place that can give me a really good chicken piccata, I'm into.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
What about you? You like Sizzler, don't you?
That's not Italian. No, not to sound like a snob, but when you live in New York City, the Italian restaurants there are rather good. So it does set the bar unrealistically high for the rest of the Italian restaurants in the country. There's a really good place in San Diego called Buona Forchetta, which is like they do amazing like calzones and things of that nature, and it's all fresh and awesome and delicious, and one of those places that is surprisingly inexpensive when you get there. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's the food there is such high quality that if you go there and eat, you think it's going to absolutely break the bank, but you're like, hey, I got out of there for only like $30. Not bad.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
But yeah, if you are in New York, there's a bazillion awesome Italian restaurants. Favorite pizza place, probably Mimi's Pizzas up on, I think it's 87th Street on the Upper East Side. Like, freaking delicious. I ran into Danny DeVito and Rita Perlman there once. And I say I saw them. And people are like, hey, what are you doing here? They're like, Mimi's, you got to come up here. It's the best pizza. And the pizza tasted just as good before I had a story to tell about the place. But somehow the story seems to make other people want to go eat there. So there's that. And then, like I said, this place, Buona Forchetta, I don't know. Like, excuse the butchering of the Italian language. But Buona Forchetta in San Diego is freaking delicious. Like, it's so good. But it's not so much pasta as it is sort of like they've got really good sort of like meatball appetizers, and they do incredible things with artichokes. And they also have this sort of like, the calzones are awesome. And they do something that I haven't really seen at too many other Italian restaurants. They have like a brie and prosciutto calzone. Oh man, Funkhouser. Brie and prosciutto calzone.
Get out of town.
Sort of like basil on top. And you don't necessarily think of brie as being Italian food, but like it's just, yeah. Oh, now I'm hungry.
Why did we do this? Why did we start talking about food
when we don't have any to eat?
It's not fair.
I don't know. Yeah. Now there's no food and I'm sad. Quick, let's do some news. Just to think, a couple minutes ago we were talking about deep fried butter and had no appetite whatsoever. Now we're all calzone craving. But yeah, they did this list of like the 15 most heavenly Italian restaurants in all of America, and I don't think the Babbo in New York City was number one. But
New York shouldn't count. Like, all of New York has the best everything.
You know what was named the best restaurant city in America, Funkhouser?
Where?
Houston, Texas.
Really?
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is that, I mean, Houston is a massive city. A lot of people don't get it. It's very spread out. There are large pieces of open land. But it's a humongous city, fourth largest city in all of America. And there's a lot of restaurants there, and people take food really seriously. A buddy of mine that worked in the culinary business in Houston was like, man, if you're going to cook in Houston, you have to be damn near the best at what it is you do, because there's so many restaurants. If you don't give people excellent service and excellent food and excellent prices, they're just going to walk across the street to something else. Like, you just don't stay in business if you're not exceptional in Houston, if you're a restaurant. So yeah, interestingly enough, named the best food city in all of America. And that was a couple of years ago. I don't know if like New York won it back or San Francisco won it back, but that was a big moment.
That's pretty
for the
cool.
Houstonians. Yeah, very, very cool. Home of one of our radio stations, KPRC 950.
KPRC.
Oldest and most venerable radio station.
More stimulating talk radio.
Which is why they put us on very late at night.
In the middle of the night.
Yes.
Yesterday was National Bosses Day.
Did you get yourself anything, Funkhouser?
I was going to say, like, happy...
You self-employed trailblazer?
Yes, I treated myself to an epic chicken piccata.
Very good. Is that... All right, so I really should know this, but chicken piccata, that's in, like, the white wine sauce, right?
It's just lemon and butter.
Lemon,
chicken.
butter. I always thought it was like
capers.
lemon, butter, capers. Yeah, and it's usually they make it in a little bit of white wine.
Oh, do they? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it is delicioso.
It's my favorite.
Yeah. Go on.
Quentin Tarantino released a statement regarding Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, well, I was hungry and now I'm not. So, there you go. That's a appetite suppressant there. We're trying to get ourselves...
Can't wait for more stories to come out.
Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty.
They're going to roll out like Cosby, you think?
Yeah. And, I think the other thing is look, the valuable part of the horrific side of Harvey Weinstein is that it's encouraging people to speak up. And, all these Me Too stories that you're seeing online, people sharing their stories of sexual assault, mostly women sharing their stories of sexual assault or rape or harassment. A lot of the time, if you get into it with some of these folks, with some of these women specifically, this is the first time they've talked about it. And I think the Harvey Weinstein thing, not only are you going to see more accusers of Harvey Weinstein coming out, but in general, there's a dam burst, like we said. People are going to start speaking out about this sort of thing. And that's the thing that I like about it playing out in such a huge and public way. This is in no way limited to Hollywood or the film industry. Sexual harassment, employers in a position of power abuse it. It happens in every town, every city, every walk of life. Some professional, some not. Like I said, I had a very good friend who was raped at knife point by someone she knew. She never came forward out of fear of what it would do to her social circle, what people would think of her, what her family would think of her, which is obviously crazy. This is a strong, smart person who I cared about very much. And it was unthinkable to me that she wasn't able to talk about this. And it happened years before I met her. But it was a real lesson into how predators select their prey. Might seem random, but I honestly believe, if you really are a predator, if you do have some weird, psychotic, effed up instinct, it leads you to people that are, for whatever reason, more likely to keep their mouth shut. So these things tend to happen to people who have been put in a position where they somehow have felt, possibly for years, that it's some way their fault, or that it would be the wrong thing to do, to come out and tell their story and to see the person that had committed these atrocities on them punished properly. My friend didn't see it like that. So I hope in some way this, at the very least, emboldens women who have been wronged to speak out. It's weird. Some of these folks are inappropriate, knuckle-dragging pigs. The Weinstein defense was like, hey, I kind of grew up in a time where it's okay to slap your secretary on the ass. I'm trying to be better. And there are people like that who are, like I said, inappropriate, knuckle-dragging pigs that need to evolve and evolve very quickly. But then there are others who are genuine predators. The predators are sick. The predators probably won't be able to stop because they're sick. But hopefully, this will make the Cro-Magnons evolve. And for the people that are actually predators. For the sick, twisted, predatorial types, hopefully this will make it much more difficult for them to find their victims, because we will evolve into a society that has made it okay, as it should have been the entire time we've been on this planet, for women to speak out. And in some cases, men too. But let's be real here. In this situation, I think mostly, I don't have hard figures to support this, I think mostly we're talking about women. So yeah, I think we have some new Harvey Weinstein stuff. Funkhouser. Maybe we'll have a chance to get into it today, but it never stops. I think we're just going to see it grow and grow, not only with regard to Harvey Weinstein, but with regard to numerous other people who have gotten away with this sort of thing for way too long. What else?
Well, Martha Stewart brand cake knives are being recalled because the handles can break and cause people to cut themselves.
Oh, gosh. Martha Stewart brand cake knives. Well, fortunately, if you slice yourself open with a Martha Stewart brand cake knife, Martha can show you how to stop the bleeding using just 2 pine cones and a little glitter and some other items that you might have around.
It's
home.
very easy. Today is Eminem's birthday.
I believe that President Trump just got him something very special, an IRS audit. Did Trump ever respond to Eminem, or did he let that one go?
No word. Haven't seen anything.
Because if he did just let it go, good for him. You know, that's a presidential thing to do. Not take the bait. I'll never forget, like Rudy Giuliani, who was my mayor in New York City when 9/11 happened, and I know a lot of people think of him being this bizarre old crypt keeper who's absolutely lost it, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, but I haven't paid that close attention to him. But he was a true leader during 9/11, and I remember taking it as a sign of his strength when, at the end of the year, when people talked about, it's been a hell of a year, you want to look back on it, you know, we're going to talk about 9/11, we're going to talk about some other things. What about music? Did any music come out this year that you were really into? He was like, I wasn't a big fan of that song, Who Shot Rudy? Some like rap group did a song about him called Who Shot Rudy? And that was the only reference that he made to it. And that was the right thing to do. I saw that as strength. And you know what? If Donald Trump blew his cool and went after Eminem on Twitter, then I would have taken that as a sign of weakness. Eminem going after Donald Trump is a very interesting one, because this is what happens in the world of rap battling. If you want to, rap battling has been equated to time in prison. Never done time in prison, but I've certainly done some rap battling in my time. And the idea is you go after the biggest, meanest, toughest opponent that you can find and make a name for yourself. Because even if you manage to take a little piece out of him, you as a rank amateur that no one's ever heard of before, by attacking the biggest guy in the room and going up against him or her, you are going to gain a little bit of notoriety. And technically speaking, what Eminem did was he took on the biggest guy in the room being the world. So it made perfect sense that he went ahead and did that. And it was the right and more presidential thing to not respond to it. Although part of me feels as though Donald Trump recognizes the fact that Eminem is a guy who made a name for himself by cleverly insulting people. He is a master wordsmith. He is a master lyricist. He is a master. You cannot beat Eminem. Eminem became who he was because absolutely no one could beat him. He was absolutely undefeated when it came to rap battling. And you don't want to get into a war of words with that guy in any way, shape, or form. That would be a bad idea. So maybe Donald Trump realized that if he was going to pop off on Twitter, he was definitely out of his weight class in that one. Either way, not acknowledging it, that was the right move. What else?
Pittsburgh Steelers receiver Martavius Bryant is unhappy and wants to be traded.
Oh. Steelers should show him what true unhappiness is and trade him to the Cleveland Browns. Go on.
Sport. Halloween company is selling a giant penis.
Oh, yeah, costume. Giant
yes,
male appendage.
This will be the last news.
You know how you're wondering what you should go to this, like, you got to go to this highfalutin Halloween costume party with some of your film people. Oh, man. Oh, man, we didn't get a chance to get into Colin Kaepernick. Oh, man. Anyways, we got some suggestions. Carmen thinks you should go as David Spade because you sound like David Spade to this Halloween party. I think that's a good one. People just have to listen to your voice, though. It's hard to do at a loud party. But or you could go as this giant male phallus.
I'll do it.
For the same effect, you could just dress as Justin Bieber. Same kind of thing.